Senate Majority Leader says a short time ago the Senate will receive it tonight. Hello and welcome to Fox News at Night. I'm Shannon Bream in Washington. Judge Brett Kavanaugh's fate still hangs in the balance tonight. We're going to talk to Senator Lindsey Graham. Does the GOP have the votes to get him to the Supreme Court? And Sean Hannity is here as his sources say the FBI report is done. And across the country, Republicans are trending up in pivotal Senate races. Brand new Fox polls to show you tonight. We've got Fox team coverage as the Kavanaugh drama is nearing a vote. Leland Vitter's pouring through what's known about the FBI report. He's got some inside scoop. But first, Chad Pergram from Capitol Hill, where the action is tonight. All right, Chad, the Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, took that first step. He went to the floor to move forward this confirmation vote. So what could a timeline look like?
Well, the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, initiated a 4-day process. He's repeatedly said he wants to have the confirmation vote this week. So he had to initiate this process tonight before midnight. And what he did, the term of art here on Capitol Hill, is filing cloture. That's an effort to limit debate. So he filed that tonight. By Senate rule, that needs a day to lay over. So tomorrow, day 2, it lays dormant, and then it ripens like a fruit on Friday. That means it's available for a vote. That's the procedural vote to cut off debate. It needs 51 yeas. In the old days, last year, 2017, when they were dealing with Neil Gorsuch for the Supreme Court, Mitch McConnell lowered the bar to end filibusters. It used to be 60. It's now down to 51. And so if you have invoked cloture on day 3, Friday, voted to cut off debate, then a 30-hour clock begins to run. That's all the time that the minority, that opponents of the nomination can consume until it culminates in a confirmation vote, probably on Saturday, 30 hours thereafter. Now, Shannon, the Senate rule says you vote on cloture 1 hour after you come in. So it's possible they could have come in Friday morning at 12:01 and have that procedural vote at 1:01 on Friday morning.
Well, you and I may be here doing this then if that happens overnight. Okay, so where do we know about where they stand with votes on either side now?
Yeah, it's absolutely about the math, the math, the math. You've heard me say that many times before. Look at the trio. Mitch McConnell needs to keep the trio of Jeff Flake, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins together. If he keeps them together, he gets to 51. If he loses one of those 3, he's right at 50, and Mike Pence, the vice president, would break the tie. Well, what about Democrats? It's generally not thought that any Democrat would vote to confirm Brett Kavanaugh unless Republicans can deliver the goods. In other words, they carry the freight and get them across 51. I talked earlier with Joe Manchin, a Democratic senator from West Virginia. He's in play. Listen to what he had to say about his vote.
Well, I'm looking at the gentleman as an adult from 22 to 30, 53, 31 years of professional service. I'm looking at him as a father, as a person in the community, how he interacts with his community. I'm looking at a little bit of everything. I'm trying to put the human side to it.
So Joe Manchin is in play. I would also look at Heidi Heitkamp, the Democrat from North Dakota. Those are the 2 main operatives in the Democrats that might be in play to vote for Brett Kavanaugh.
Okay, so how tense are things on Capitol Hill with all of this going on? We've heard quite a bit about what you're experiencing there, and the members as well.
I tell you, it's been absolutely supercharged. You've had protesters in the hallway. We're expecting a lot of more protesters tomorrow. You've had U.S. Capitol Police escorting senators to and from the Capitol when they had to come and vote. We had a story break tonight where an unpaid Democratic intern for Sheila Jackson Lee has been arrested by the U.S. Capitol Police for doxing 3 of the Republican senators on the Judiciary Committee. He was caught in a Capitol Hill office last night, and then he was arrested at home by the U.S. Capitol Police today. You had Mitch McConnell saying that we're not going to be intimidated by these protesters harassing Republican senators in the hall. And then you had Chuck Schumer, the minority leader, basically going right up to the edge where he almost called Mitch McConnell a liar. He said, I'm not going to use the L word. He's using falsehoods, he said. You don't hear that sort of language here on Capitol Hill between the 2 leaders very often. The reason this nomination is dancing on the tip of a pen, it could go either way when you're dealing with 49, 50, 51 votes. That's why it's so tense, Shannon.
All right, we understand. Chad Pergram, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
We'll pencil us in for Friday night, Saturday morning. We'll see how this goes. All right, Democrats now saying the FBI has not done a truly thorough vetting in its updated investigation into Judge Kavanaugh's background. Correspondent Leland Vittert is checking those claims for us tonight as we wait to get official word about where this report is.
Well, where this report is, and remember, nobody who has seen it, so people who are criticizing it really don't know what's in it. 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, senators, starting with the chairman and ranking member, and then a limited group of aides, start to see this report from the FBI, which the Senate Majority Leader just previewed on the floor.
The 7th time the FBI has looked into Judge Kavanaugh's background, and this information comes on top of what was already been one of the most thorough and most exhaustive Senate reviews of any Supreme Court nominee in the entire history of our country.
As for what could be in that report and could not be, we know the FBI has talked to Leland Kaiser. That's Christine Blasey Ford's friend who was allegedly at the party. Her lawyer sent a letter late last week saying, in part, the simple and unchangeable truth is that she, meaning Leland Kaiser, is unable to corroborate it, meaning the story from Dr. Ford, because she has no recollection of the incident in question. FBI has also talked to Mark Judge, Kavanaugh's high school friend, and identified by Ford as being present during the alleged assault. Judge has publicly denied this. Deborah Ramirez, the woman who alleged Kavanaugh engaged in a lewd act during his days at Yale, also spoke with the FBI. As far as we know, neither Dr. Ford or Judge Kavanaugh have sat down for FBI interviews, although their stories are, of course, well known publicly for the Senate Judiciary Committee hearings. Democratic senators are crying foul over that.
The fact that they were limited on who they could talk to, the fact that they don't have the authority to even go back to Judge Kavanaugh if they have further questions in light of these additional interviews, the fact that they can't even go back to Dr. Ford if they want to.
So the spin has begun even before the report is out. Republicans are pushing for a way to have at least some of it come out publicly.
I'm certainly going to ask about it again today at lunch. I think it would help you. More importantly, again, I think it would help the American people know that there was a real background check that took place and what came out of it.
All right, so tonight we wait. By custom, background reports are supposed to be kept confidential by senators and their staff. Shannon, although given the current political climate, one can wonder how much people are adhering really to any custom on Capitol Hill right now.
Or information that's confidential or leaks or any of those things that happen in D.C. All right, Leland, thank you very much.
Ma'am.
All right, an agreement, a one-week delay, and a new FBI investigation. Is already being questioned tonight by top-ranking Democrats. All this as Republicans remain focused on getting Judge Kavanaugh's nomination to a vote and doing it soon. Republican Senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee, joins us now to weigh in. Good to see you,
Hello.
Senator.
Hi.
You're busy.
Yeah, it's been it's good to help a nice man like Judge Kavanaugh get on the Supreme Court.
Well, you know the Democrats don't think he's so nice. I want to read a little bit of back and forth. This started on Twitter, as so many fights in Washington do.
Okay.
This is from the Senate Judiciary Committee yesterday. Tweeted, nowhere in any of these 6 FBI reports, referring to the previous background checks, which the committee has reviewed on a bipartisan basis, was there ever a whiff of any issue at all related in any way to inappropriate sexual behavior or alcohol abuse. Well, Senator Dick Durbin says the tweet's not accurate. Committee Republicans must correct it. He sent a letter. We noticed that only Senators Coons and Klobuchar, Democrats on the committee, didn't sign it. Then the Senate Judiciary Committee tweets back, nothing in the tweet is inaccurate or misleading. The committee stands by its statement, which is completely truthful, more baseless innuendo and more false smears from Senate Democrats. What are they referring to, the Democrats?
I have no idea what Durbin's referring to, but I can tell you the facts. Kavanaugh was nominated in 2006. He's been on the court for 12 years. They've been 6 background checks because he had worked for President Bush as his secretary, personal secretary, not doing dictation, but, you know, managing the Oval Office, everything around the president. He had a background check from hell to get that job. I dare Durbin to go through it, me to go through it, see how well we would do. So, no, Durbin's wrong. Durbin's just making up another story that's not true. There's nothing in his background checks that suggest anything consistent with the allegations against him, and if they had been, they would have said something about it. So Democrats have been despicable in the way they treated him, and if it's true there was something there, they're just incompetent. There's nothing there.
All right, so let's talk through a couple of things. Dr. Ford's legal team today, because Senator Grassley, the chairman, has asked numerous times for recordings of the polygraph, communications with the media regarding these allegations, and her therapist notes, because he says, listen, you gave some of them to the Washington Post. At least according to the Washington Post, we want those. Her team says Dr. Ford is now prepared to provide those documents to the FBI. When she's interviewed, we have not yet heard from the FBI about scheduling an interview with her. So won't give them to the committee, but will give them to the FBI.
It's just a game. They keep playing a game at Dr. Ford's expense. If this would help Dr. Ford, why wouldn't they give them to us? The bottom line here is Dr. Ford's been used by the Democratic Party here. The person who betrayed her trust and leaked her name to the media had a political agenda. It was not a friend. And the political activist lawyers that were given to her by Democratic senators' staff members, I think, have a lot to account for. Brett Kavanaugh is the man I've known for 20 years. He's the man you see in the record. And everything that's happened to him during this confirmation process has been despicable, and it's all fallen apart, and it's always another reason. If you don't believe he's a gang rapist, if you don't believe he's a sexual predator, if you don't believe he's a stumbling, bumbling drunk, how about this? He just doesn't have the temperament to be a judge. This is one that offends me the most. How would you react if somebody destroyed your life and you found yourself in front of the entire nation being humiliated? What would you do?
Well, the top Democrat on the committee, Senator Dianne Feinstein, says this about him not being interviewed by the FBI for this newest background check. She says when he wasn't yelling and demeaning senators, he was making misleading statements that cast doubt on his overall trustworthiness. I don't think that would happen with FBI agents seated across the table. All right, next step.
Okay, number one, what a joke. I like Dianne Feinstein. I don't think she leaked Dr. Ford's name to the media, but somebody around her may have. If you saw this man as yelling, I saw a man who was offended to his core, defended his good name, took it to the people who were trying to destroy his family. What would you do if you're in that situation? So this idea that somehow his temperament's in question, you're rewarding the worst behavior I've seen in 20 years if you buy that garbage to any Republican. His temperament before this hearing was A++, according to ABA. Do not let these people do what they've done to Judge Kavanaugh and reward them by saying he's no longer fit because he is in the world's worst position of defending himself against a bunch of garbage from people who don't care about fairness. This has never been about the truth. It's been about delaying the hearing to get past the midterms, to fill this seat in 2020. If you don't believe me, listen to Senator Hirano.
All right, we got to go. But do you have the votes? Does he have the votes within the next 4 or 5 days to become a justice?
Yeah, I've never felt more confident because I've been told a summary of a summary. The FBI background check is going to hold up. It's going to reinforce everything the committee did. We'll get briefed about it tomorrow. If that's the case, if the FBI interviews validate what the committee found, I hope these 3 Republicans who asked for the delay will say, nah, I'm satisfied, and we'll get this good man on the court. I've never felt better about it. I hope Joe Manchin in West Virginia, who's a friend of mine, will listen to the people of West Virginia, Joe, because they're telling you what to do. And Joe Manchin is a friend, but Brett Kavanaugh I've known for 20 years. I'm telling you right now, what they've done to this guy, Joe, is a bunch of garbage, and you should be offended, and it will destroy the judiciary. Don't be part of this crowd, Joe. Go with West Virginia.
He has said that he will be fair-minded and listening to both sides, so we'll see.
Until I'm proven otherwise, I'll believe it.
All right. Senator Graham, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Good to see you. All right, an agreement, a 1-week delay, and a new FBI investigation. But tonight, it appears there's very little bipartisanship as we inch closer to a vote on the president's second Supreme Court nominee. Tonight's Power Panel here to discuss Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall, former DOJ counsel Jamil Jaffer, and Town Hall senior columnist Kurt Schlichter. Welcome to all of you.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, Shannon.
Okay, so listen, we know this FBI report. Mitch McConnell said tonight it is coming into the Senate tonight. We know that there are a couple of top Senate leaders who are supposed to see it first thing in the morning, about 8 a.m. Eastern. It goes to the White House first. But just a reminder that there's still a lot of back and forth going on between Senator Grassley, the chair of the committee, and Ford's legal team. Just to remind people what Grassley has asked the team for, he wants therapist notes because some of them were shared with the Washington Post, polygraph recordings of Dr. Ford taking the test, and communications that Ford or her team had with media outlets. Today, this is what her attorneys say. Dr. Ford is prepared to provide those documents to the FBI when she's interviewed. We have not yet heard from the FBI about scheduling an interview with her. Jamel.
I mean, look, the Senate is doing its investigation. The Democrats called for the Senate to do their investigation. I'm not sure why Dr. Ford's attorneys won't give the Senate, whose job it is to do the investigation, the records they're asking for. She wants to give it to the FBI. That's fine. She should give it to the Senate, too.
All right, this is what Grassley says now in response to that back and forth. He says, the Constitution tasked the Senate, not the media or the FBI, with providing advice and consent for Supreme Court nominees. It's disappointing that Dr. Ford's attorneys were willing to share evidence with the Washington Post many weeks ago, but to this day refused to share the same evidence which Dr. Ford relied on in her testimony with the Senate. Leslie, does it help or hurt her case that she won't share these bits of evidence?
Well, I think her attorney has their reasons, and quite frankly, I think they want it out there that the FBI has not talked to them. The FBI allegedly has not talked to Judge Kavanaugh either, and that's problematic to me because I want it to be a thorough investigation. I think a week is enough time, but I think you have to interview all of the parties. It bothers me, quite frankly, that it was leaked to the Washington Post. Jamil, I somewhat agree with you that they could easily give this to both the senators and the FBI, but I think it's, in a sense, a statement, if you will, saying we'll be glad to provide this, but we want to give it to the FBI in this investigation. By the way, they haven't called us. We haven't spoken to them, and they want to put that out there, and I think she's doing it in the best interest of her client.
Well, Kurt, you know, we haven't seen the report yet, and we may never see it, but the people who are going to get to see it, the senators, even those who are criticizing, haven't seen it yet. But their main objection is the fact that Dr. Ford, Judge Kavanaugh, neither of them apparently, as far as we know, interviewed by the FBI, but they both have given hours of sworn testimony. What would the FBI benefit in talking to those two? Do you think that this makes it illegitimate that they weren't reviewed?
No, this is just another delaying tactic, Shannon. The Democrats want to do everything they can to keep this vote from coming to the floor. And any excuse, any ridiculous rationale for delaying it is something that we're going to see thrown up there. And that's what's happening now. She doesn't need to be interviewed again. She spent how many hours on the being interviewed in front of the entire committee on national TV? We've all seen what she has to say. We've all seen what Brett Kavanaugh has to say. Let's see if the FBI came up with anything new, and then let's vote and let's confirm this guy.
Well, and Jamil, it looks like they're moving that way. Mitch McConnell setting things in motion tonight, a possible vote Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, Mitch McConnell has filed cloture. That means the Senate has to limit debate shortly when they vote to invoke cloture, which they will now be able to do because the filibuster is gone post the Neil Gorsuch vote, which I'm sure the Democrats now are regretting. That means that after that, there'll be 30 hours of debate, and the Senate goes to a vote, and that's it. Up or down, whatever happens, that's what's happening.
Okay, so Leslie, if the report comes in tonight or tomorrow and senators have time to review it, if it's been thorough, if it covers the same ground, would you be okay with the vote moving forward, or what would your objection be? Because this is the deal they made a week ago.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, if you're going to delay it, I mean, the midterms are in November, so that's absolutely ridiculous to say that my party wants to just delay. I think they want all the information. Secondly, FBI is going to ask different questions than Senate, so I disagree. I think both should be questioned by the FBI. And then lastly, what bothers me is what I'm hearing is that there's going to be one report, and that this report will go back and forth between Republicans and Democrats and, you know, senator to senator. And I am concerned that in 30 hours now all of them can view it, and I want all of them to see it before they make their vote. Because my bet is there'll be 1 or 2 Republicans that say no and 1 or 2 Democrats that say yes to his confirmation.
All right, Kurt, final word to you.
Oh, you know, we don't need to go on. Shannon, we don't need to get to the bottom of the ice-throwing allegations. It's all done. It's over. We know what we need to do. We know what we need to vote on this guy. Senators, go do your job. Confirm this man.
All right, and Kurt, what's the name of your new book?
Hey, my new book is Militant Normals. It's available on Amazon. Go out and get it. It's a lot of fun.
Leslie and Jamil, you tell us about your books when you have them too. Thanks to all of you for coming in tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Shannon.
All right, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell setting the process in motion now to confirm Judge Kavanaugh. He started that tonight, and the FBI is reportedly heading to the White House. The report there. First of all, though, we've got Sean Hannity coming up with what he knows is some surprises. That's next. This is a Fox News alert. As the Kavanaugh debate rolls on, the effect on the midterm election seems to be showing up in our brand new Fox News polls, which could spell trouble for Democrats in key battleground states, at least when it comes to the Senate. Correspondent Trace Gallagher is looking into the numbers for us tonight. Good evening, Trace.
Good evening, Shannon. Let's start with the big picture. This new round of Fox News polls shows that there is a common denominator in the 5 battleground states for the Senate, which is an increase in GOP interest. Take a look. Compared to early September, the number of Republicans feeling extremely interested in the upcoming midterms is up 2 points in Arizona, up 9 in Indiana, 8 in both Missouri and North Dakota, and up 11 in Tennessee. Experts say it appears to be driven by the battle over Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation. nomination, and voting against his nomination hurts more than it helps. For example, last month in the Missouri Senate race, Democratic incumbent Senator Claire McCaskill was leading by 3 points against her GOP rival Josh Hawley. Now the race is tied. And remember, even before Kavanaugh and Dr. Christine Blasey Ford testified, McCaskill had already said she would vote against Kavanaugh. And among the 28% of voters who say they could still switch candidates, almost twice as many say voting against Kavanaugh would make them less likely to support McCaskill. In North Dakota, Democratic Senator Heidi Heitkamp is still undecided on Kavanaugh, but she is quickly losing support of women. And now she's running 12 points behind her Republican challenger, Kevin Cramer. And if Heitkamp votes against Kavanaugh, twice as many say they would be less likely to vote for her. In Tennessee, where GOP Senator Bob Corker is retiring, Republican Marsha Blackburn has a 5-point lead over Democrat and former Tennessee Governor Phil Bredesen. Blackburn's lead is still within the margin of error, but it is up from last month, although we should note Bredesen's voters appear to be a bit more loyal. 92% of Democrats back him versus 82% of Republicans backing Blackburn. Bottom line here, it'll be fascinating to see where the chips fall once the Kavanaugh vote is complete. Shannon.
All right, Trace, thank you very much. We'll come back to you in just a little bit. In the meantime, let's dig in deeper to the polls for some analysis. We'll bring in our bipartisan pollsters to weigh in. The president of Anderson Robbins Research, Chris Anderson, and the CEO of WPA Intelligence, Chris Wilson. Welcome to you both.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm tempted to call you just by your last names, but I won't. I'll give you first and last since you're both Chris. Chris Anderson, let's start with North Dakota. Heidi Heitkamp, in that case, the race that Trace was just talking about there. A tighter race earlier, and now a spread of 12 points in favor of the Republican. What do you make of it?
Well, this is a very red state, one that Trump won overwhelmingly. And what seems to be happening in North Dakota and in the other 4 states is that Republicans are coming home. They were less enthusiastic a month ago. What's happened in the interim seems to have energized them some, and they are coming home to their natural base, which is voting for the Republican. North Dakota does appear that out of these 5 races that we looked at to be the one that might be getting out of reach for Democrats, for the Democrat there at this point.
Okay, so Chris Wilson, let's talk about a couple of these others. In Tennessee, that race there has been pretty consistently, pretty tightly matched, but now Phil Bredesen lagging 5 points behind Marsha Blackburn. She's long been a President Trump supporter, made no hesitation about that. He has been very well respected and very well loved as a more moderate Democrat there in Tennessee. How do you see this race shaping up?
Well, the problem is he may be a moderate, but he is now attached to the National Democratic Party, which has become anything but moderate. And so he can try as hard as he wants to run away from Chuck Schumer, but Chuck Schumer is the one getting the press, and the Democrats on the Judiciary Committee are the ones getting the press. And Phil Bredesen is the recipient of that sort of voter animosity amongst swing voters and independents, and now Republicans who are more energized in Tennessee. But, you know, to me, I don't want to talk about North Dakota. You know, it's interesting in the incumbents that were tested. You have Heidi Heitkamp at 43%. You have Claire McCaskill at 43%. You have Joe Donnelly at 43%. And the one thing that we as pollsters look for is where is an incumbent to that 50% threshold. And when you have an incumbent 7 points under 50%, the chances of them being able to gain those 7 points back and get reelected are pretty far-fetched. It's not likely that any of the 3 of those are able to return to Washington, no matter how they vote on this.
Okay, I want to quickly have both of you touch on the Indiana race, too, because we had Joe Donnelly there, who is the incumbent. He came out as a no against Judge Kavanaugh on Friday. Then they worked out this deal to have the 1-week delay for the FBI investigation, and he seemed to say, okay, well, now I'm going to wait for the FBI and see what happens, not exactly retracting his no, but Chris Anderson not being a firm yes or no, it sounds like, at this point.
So Indiana is the one race where we saw move towards the Democrat since September. So it's still very close, but it clearly has not hurt him, or at least according to this round of polling, it has not. The other states we saw movement towards Republicans. Indiana came towards the Democrat.
Chris Wilson, I want to ask you about the House, because that seems to be a totally different story than what we're seeing for the Republicans. Good news for them in the Senate, bad news in the House races. Why is that?
you know, it's a tale of two territories. Right now, Democrats are having to fight on Republican turf, and as Chris Anderson mentioned, you know, you look at North Dakota, that's a state Republicans won, that Donald Trump won overwhelmingly. He won Indiana, he won West Virginia, he won Montana, he won. I mean, you can kind of go through state by state where Republicans are defending are fighting for Senate seats that they're likely to pick up, and those are Republican states. Conversely, where you have two different types of House seats that are up. You have the suburban House seats, that really where the map doesn't work out really well for Republicans. Those races and those seats have been trending Democrat for a while. What I do see, though, is the rural, sort of a little bit ex-urban type of House seats. Those are ones that Republicans are starting to gain ground back in. So I'm not going to, it's too close to say that whether Republicans are picking things up, but it is moving. It's definitely an uphill map.
Okay. All right. Chris Anderson and Chris Wilson, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the president and his legal team fighting back tonight after the New York Times suggested he and his father committed tax fraud. A high-powered attorney who's taken on journalists and one is warning the gray lady, and so is the White House.
Suing them so they can get his tax returns. And haven't they learned yet that President Trump always gets the last laugh and the upper hand in all of this?
Diplomacy, two vastly different approaches against two different adversaries. So which one, or will they both pay off? Turns out he has ties to this Democratic lawmaker. We've got details next. Plus, Sean Hannity makes his Fox News at Night debut, weighing in on reaction to the president's comments about accuser Christine Blasey Ford. Stick around. In Austin campus, it all started when students gathered in support of Supreme Court nominee Judge Brett Kavanaugh. Now, other students opposing Kavanaugh surrounded them, took their signs, ripped them up, and reportedly snatched a Make America Great Again hat off a student's head. U.S. Capitol Police have arrested a man who's worked for several Democrats on Capitol Hill. He's accused of posting personal information for 3 Republican senators on the internet, including things like home addresses and cell phone numbers. It's a practice called doxing, stands for dropping documents. Capitol Police arresting 27-year-old Jackson Costco, who most recently worked as a staffer for Texas Democratic Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. He allegedly targeted 3 GOP members of the Senate Judiciary Committee during or shortly after Thursday's hearings with Judge Kavanaugh and accuser Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. All right, so is the Kavanaugh confirmation battle taking us to a new political low? On the other side of the aisle, key GOP senators say the president's remarks about Blasey Ford last night are appalling, unacceptable, and just plain wrong. The administration now fighting back. Now, as soon as that FBI report, the 7th on Kavanaugh's completed, the White House does get the first look. Will the president continue to stand by his nominee? Now, the one and only Sean Hannity in his Fox News at Night debut.
Thank you for having me. I congrats on the show.
Thank you.
You're doing great, and it's an honor to be with you. I haven't been on the show. You've done amazing work on Supreme Court issues over the years, and you know this issue very well. But I don't think it's ever been that bad or this bad as it is now. And you know what the sad part is? To me, it's getting, when politicians are saying get in their face, and they're following Sarah Sanders and kicking her family out of a restaurant, or Pam Bondi, or Secretary Nielsen, then it's Ted Cruz, then it's Mitch McConnell, now the example that you just brought up. And I'm thinking, somebody's going to get hurt here. This is now, we're at a tipping point. But the big challenge now is this: whether America is going to remain a country that believes in due process, the presumption of innocence, our Constitution, the rule of law, or whether or not guilt by accusation rules the day. Now, we're going to find out probably by Friday, Saturday, the latest, whether or not Republicans are going to stand up against what are allegations that have no corroboration, that have inconsistencies. It's a very crucial moment for the country, in my view.
Well, and you know there are a number of Republicans who are on the fence. They're the ones we're really watching, the Flake, Collins, Murkowski, a couple of key Democrats as well, but they say they had some negative reaction to the president last night in his rally. Here is what Senator Lindsey Graham, who's a big supporter of the president, here's what he said about those comments from last night.
So President Trump went through a factual rendition that I didn't particularly like, and I would tell him, knock it off. You're not helping. But it can be worse. You can actually kill somebody's cat and puncture their tires to get them to shut up. So, you know, what he said.
His reference there in the second part, obviously, back to the Clinton years.
Yeah.
And,
well, there is a double standard. Keith Ellison, more recently. I mean, in the case of the woman that is accusing him, I've not heard any of these members of the Senate Judiciary Committee or any of the Democrats call for an FBI investigation into Keith Ellison. And apparently, the woman making the allegations has text messages, tape recordings, doctor's reports. and they say nothing. Or in the case of Bill Clinton, if we really want to go back to people earlier in their lives, well, we can go back to when Bill Clinton was the Attorney General, the rape accusation of Juanita Broderick. Look, the double standard stinks to high heaven. You mentioned 3 Republicans. They asked for the FBI report. My sources tonight are telling me that it pretty much just reiterates what the Senate Judiciary Committee, their conclusions, what the investigation is. Remember, the FBI will not reach conclusions. They'll not make recommendations. If that's the case, how do these 3 Republicans justify now moving the bar? I'm beginning to hear, well, maybe he doesn't have the proper temperament.
Well, you know, they're worried about the fact that the judge and the professor, it appears, have not been interviewed at last check by the FBI, and they say it's not complete without those 2, although they've both given hours of sworn testimony.
They've given hours of sworn testimony. Unless they have something new to offer, we already know where they stand. We know what their stories are. Look, in the case of Professor Ford, she said there was an eyewitness to the alleged assault. The eyewitness apparently again has gone on record saying it never happened. Her best friend says she has no recollection of ever being at any party where something like this happened, or was ever told about it, or ever met or knew Judge Kavanaugh. And if you break it down with each case, this is pivotal. We're not a country, you know, we've gotten things wrong in the media. A lot of our colleagues, you know, I was right about Richard Jewell. I was a local host in Atlanta at the time, and he thanked me for not rushing to judgment. With Duke Lacrosse, UVA, Ferguson, Missouri, Cambridge Police, Baltimore, Maryland, Trayvon Martin, everybody rushes to judgment. They think they know how these things are going to work out. There's been a full, now 7 investigations into Judge Kavanaugh. He has made a passionate defense of his position, and without any corroboration, this man belongs on the court. And if the risk is, if these Republicans now move the bar, change what the standard is, now it becomes about temperament, not about the FBI report. What they have done is they've now opened the door that every single person ever brought into any important office is going to be subject to the same lies, smears, besmirchment, the character assassination, and frankly, the bludgeoning of their family.
Yeah, and that's going to happen on both sides of the aisle. People have to remember, if you set a standard now.
It'll go both ways.
Yeah, and as a woman and as an attorney, I do think it's very important that people come forward with these accusations, but then that we do have due process.
Listen, as a father of a daughter, somebody who has 3 sisters, let me tell you something. I was glad the Republicans took this seriously. They did the right thing, but the evidence didn't corroborate it. At that point, we are a country that believes in due process and presumption of innocence. And if it doesn't end up that way, we will have gone backwards in ways that I think will be unpredictable at this hour.
Yeah, for everyone involved in public service. Sean, thank you.
All right, Shannon,
good
congratulations on everything.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Senator Mitch McConnell is the story tonight. Kristen Fisher looks at this pivotal moment in history for the Senate's majority leader.